Well, hello and good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us this morning on Deep Lumen's weekly event where we bring on amazing guests like Sean McGaff, who I'm going to introduce here shortly. But we've also got Joy Wu, who is the co-founder of Deep Lumen, and she has an amazing background in startups and in AI and in technology. And so, welcome, Joy. We want to make sure that, do you want to say a few words before we get going? And I introduce Sean.
Thank you, Thomas, so much for the kind introduction, and such a pleasure to have this webinar with Sean today. And my name is Joy Wu, welcoming everybody back from last webinar. So I'm coming from Deep Lumen. I'm the co-founder. We are on a good track of capturing what's happening in AI, and I have a marketing background and then also AI background. So while working in the AI space for the marketing, I realized, or me and my co-founders are realizing that, oh, wait a second, agents are making decisions for human beings. So let's maybe do marketing to agents instead of just human being, and that's where the whole Deep Lumen idea coming from. And interestingly, the company just founded later last year, and then we get really good funding support from our investors. And luckily, we're also getting a lot of positive news from Google, from ChatGPT, who are all doing commercialization, doing all this agentic commerce this year. So feeling good. Feeling we're on the good track, and also very excited to have this conversation with Sean and Thomas today.
Well, thank you, Joy. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sean, and our topic today is how branding is now sales and has now become your sales channel. We're going to talk about that with Sean. Sean McGaff is an AI startup and go-to-market product leader. He's an entrepreneur and a growth strategist who has spent more than a decade helping companies scale through data-driven marketing automation and AI-enabled growth strategy. What do you think about that, Sean? That
sounds like keyword soup. Sounds like a good technical marketer right there.
Well, yeah. You're a founder and a CPO. You've done it all, so you're right there in the trenches. That's what I love about you.
Yeah,
you work right in the trenches, bringing products and companies to market in this industry. So you are the person that we want to include and talk to about this today. And so today we really want to dive into what that means. When we talk about how is it that branding can be described as sales, why does that make sense? And what does that mean for companies going forward by way of A, their organization, B, their spend on the budget and the marketing side, and then C, how they're going to eventually get customers directly into the loop, leveraging AI to do so. So, Sean, I would ask you, what does it mean when we talk about the collapse of the traditional marketing funnel in that context?
Wow, you're just going right into the meaty question here, aren't you, man? No warm up. Come on, we gotta ease into it here. All right, we're just going straight for the collapse. I like it. I think I really liked the way that Joy framed it just now of, marketing to AI instead of just humans. I think is a really good framework to think about this, right? So, talking about brand, I actually, like Joy, I have a marketing background and a technical background. I started out building graph neural nets and algorithms, and that's how I got into marketing, is through the technical side, and started an agency. And I ran and scaled that agency for about a decade before becoming a fractional and working with a bunch of startups. And during that time, I always felt like brand was really important. I always felt that foundational brand and your positioning and all that is really important. And I could never sell it as a service. It was always this overlooked thing that nobody wants to spend money on until you're this giant, big corporation that you can afford to do that and have people. And so it was one of those things that nobody wanted to think about. Everybody knew was important, but nobody wanted to put budget to it because you couldn't measure it. You couldn't measure, I invested in brand, and so I got 5 clicks that converted to 2 sales, and therefore my ROI is great. And through the 2010 to 2020, it was this like era of we only do things we can measure, right? And everything we can have a direct ROI. And so people are missing this whole big important pipeline of this funnel where everybody thinks about the traditional funnel as you do SEO or you do paid search or you do paid social, and then you walk them down this funnel and you can measure each of the steps and you know the ROI. And this whole time there was this whole second funnel over here that's like this dark social and brand and all these things you can't measure. And it turns out that funnel was way bigger and way more profitable, and the cost per lead was way lower. You just couldn't measure it and you couldn't prove it in your board meeting, right? And so people wouldn't invest in it. They wouldn't put the budget towards it. And I think we're about to see the exact same thing with AI, right? Where there's going to be so many questions and so much learning that people are doing in ChatGPT, where they're asking questions and telling them walk through, and it's not going to be trackable directly in a lot of ways, because most people aren't going to click out of ChatGPT to go directly to your site. It's going to look like direct traffic. It's going to look like just out of nowhere, like the traffic's just going to show up on your site.
Can I ask, can we define what just happened there? So what you just said was people go into ChatGPT and they enter their query, their question, whatever it may be. What did that skip? So how does that compare to the previous process, and what happened to attribution somewhere in that black hole?
Yeah, the thing you need for attribution is you need a trackable click for it, right? That's the key. You need them to click on an ad on Facebook, and for Facebook to have a system that says, hey, this person is this person, and then it goes to your website, and then they click around on your website, and you've got your tracking pixel and your de-anonymization technology, and like the whole foundation is on that. And when they're on ChatGPT saying, I have this problem and I need help with this problem, educate me on it, and then your brand is coming up because the way that they're talking about the problem matters, right? Search, in my experience, Google search, it really, because it's at the keyword level, you kind of have this collapse of how you talk about things into just a few keywords, which kind of, it almost like a funnel, it brings people into just a handful of keywords that are really big in any given category, because that's how consumers have been trained. And so you can optimize for just a few keywords, get a lot of traffic, and that's great. With ChatGPT, there's no limits because you can just talk to it like I'm doing right now. I've said so many words. You don't even have to say anything. I'm just going to talk. And there's a lot of nuance in how we talk about a problem and how we frame it and how we think about it. And so if you as a company frame your problem in that same way, you're going to match up, and ChatGPT is going to pull in that answer, your brand, based on how they're talking about it, and you'll never know if you're not doing the measurements to see how often you're coming up and all that kind of stuff. You're not going to know because there's no link to click on. Maybe they click on a citation, but not many.
Yeah, Sean just throws so many good topics and interesting points. Like the one you just mentioned, it's the last click is really the internet. Like when internet is coming up, you always calculate it, or attrition is really being counted as last click. But in reality, is that usually people see certain ads in like a YouTube, and then they go to TikTok, and then they go to Facebook. People start talking about it, and then they click. So the last click is being counted as a credit towards Facebook. But in real life, is that without YouTube, without TikTok, brand exposure, the conversion will be slightly different. So that's where I think in the internet era, things are being kind of like missing out, or the last click measurement is not credit towards the right media channel. But then when it gets to the brand marketers, right, you need to do a fair adjustment. If last click is 100% from Facebook, does it mean that you're doing ads only on Facebook and without doing anything from YouTube and also TikTok? clearly that's not the right answer. But then how to allocate your budget becoming a really difficult problem. And that's kind of like the last click attrition problem in the internet era. But interestingly, like another point just brought up is that the queries in prompts or in AI searches, like I literally just had this conversation with one of my powder milk client this afternoon. So they're saying that I want big keyword to be optimized in GEO. I was saying, no, that's not the right way to do it, because if you're new, so I proposed a query saying that if I'm a new mom, what's the best milk powder for my baby? And they're like, no, don't use the word new mom. Nobody asks like that. But yes, in the query searches, in the traditional searches, people just search for the best milk powder. But then in query or AI searches, think about it. You usually, as a user, because large language model can process natural languages. It actually gives freedom to the users, saying that, like, I would describe myself as, oh, I'm a new mom, and then first time mom, what's the best milk powder to recommend to me? So that's kind of like the difference between search versus AI searches. And there's data showing that only 15% out of the AI searches are keywords. The remaining are all queries or natural languages. But that clearly threw a new level of questions to brands. Like they're having like a lot of brands are having difficulty to get the best sets of the keyword, not to mention the big numbers of queries, how to get them. That's becoming another problem. Like, so I think from like traditional searches to the AI searches, there are just so many changes. People always think, oh, it's all searches, it's the same. No, it's not the same. The user behavior in the nuances, it's just quite different. And that's giving a bigger...
If I break that down, Joy, just so that everybody sort of gets a grip on that, some brands are being chosen and many brands are not, right? And I think what you're saying is that those that aren't are still likely focusing on keywords, while those that are actually answering the questions that customers are asking in the way they're asking them. And whether they're typing that or verbalizing it, and I think a lot of them are verbalizing it, they're now able to respond. And for those that are still focused on the old SEO strategies and keywords, they're not part of that conversation, and therefore they're not being brought up. Now, I know there's a lot of other elements. Are there other elements in particular that people should be focused on with respect to A, making sure they answer the question in the way real people actually ask them, but B, how do you find that out? And then lastly, what other structures are needed by which to help that brand be the number one or two answer to that question by way of AI search?
Absolutely. That's exactly the right way to break down the problem and explain to the problem. You nailed it. But I think what's happening with my experiences with the brands or marketers is that they can't really measure it, like Sean mentioned earlier. Like if we cannot measure it, like what's the ROI out of, if I invested in AI searches, then I can't really invest into it. Even though I was talking to a very big marketer, he manages over $1 billion USD budget last year. And then like we were sitting in the office and we were saying that, hey, like, like people are changing from Google to search behavior, are changing from Google to ChatGPT. But when I say ChatGPT, it's not just ChatGPT, it's all these AI searches, including Gemini, within the Google system. But then people are changing. People want to use Google AI searches because it's just more natural, and it also gets you the answer. So everyone wants that. But so he himself owns the budget. He knows the traffic is changing, but there's no data showing that the traffic is changing. That's the biggest problem for marketers, is that there's no report showing my traffic is losing and then my traffic is shifting. So nobody can like make that decision to change their budget, even allocate maybe 5-10% of their existing budget to AI searches. I think that's where it's an interesting situation where I'm pretty sure a lot of platforms like Google, Gemini, like say Google AI Overview or even ChatGPT are coming up with monetization solutions or products to support, like data products and then clickable products to support that monetization for marketers. But it takes time. We remember like in February, OpenAI just launched $60 CPM without any data support and minimal $200 200K investment budget,
Right.
which really shows up that they don't know, they don't understand marketing industry at all.
But that
Yeah,
said, there are mechanisms, sorry, Sean, but there are mechanisms by which we can measure that when we start to use marketing to AI processes. And we're now bringing them into our brand by way of measuring the number of people using an agentic page, as an example, or an agent that can now measure that, speak to the customer, and actually manage that conversation on behalf of the brand. So those methods are now coming into their own. The challenge is that not enough people realize what's happening to attribution and to that process in the first place, if that's fair. Is that fair?
I think, Joy, I think you're best set up for answering that one. But I mean, I will say, like, I think for the measurement side of things, so actually backing up just a sec. So I think, for me personally, I think brand and brand marketing is like one of the highest forms of marketing. It's one of the hardest because it requires so much faith that you're doing the right thing because of the lack of measurement. And it's also because of that, it's probably the most of all the marketing channels, it's probably the one that is the most attributed to sales. Sales steals the credit and the thunder for all of the brand because what it's doing is it's making the sales easier, right? It's making them know who you are by the time they're talking to a salesperson. And so traditionally, for brand measurement, we're doing very expensive things like user studies, and customer interviews, and you're trying to measure brand recognition, and these are very expensive things to do that, Coca-Cola can afford to do it. And then, you very quickly fall off in terms of can a mid-sized business afford it? Ooh, it gets iffy really quickly. And we're actually, I think one of the things with ChatGPT and, GEO in general is that's kind of the type of measurement we're talking about doing, where we're polling the AIs for, hey, how do you respond to this kind of input, and trying to do that and measure that over time and over thousands of queries. And it's actually a lot more affordable to do that with AI than it is with humans, real humans, getting them in a room and measuring that. And so I think it's actually going to be interesting to watch the adoption on this and who are the earliest adopters and who go all in on this, because I think it's going to be the same sort of people that, they stuck by their brand guns for years. For the last 2 decades, they continued to invest in brand and understand the importance there, and understand that measurement is a little bit more squishy. It's just a little bit, it requires a little bit of filling in the cracks. But there are data points out there, and that the kind of things that Deep Lumen are doing is it gives you the right directions. It gives you navigation points, right? You can see, oh, okay, so we are seeing some change over here with this query that probably implies these other things that we need to measure over time.
And when agents get deployed on the back of that agentic or that AI, that page that is now created, Joy, on behalf of the brand on their website, as an example, you now have data points to measure that and actually see what that activity is like. Furthermore, you have the opportunity to gauge the impact that has by way of the customer at the other end and the way they interact and how they interact, and to what degree that now becomes a qualified lead, an active customer, be it D2C or B2C or B2B, right? In every one of those realms, that process is the same. It's just the transaction may look different by the end of it. I liken an example. Joy is very familiar with this, and Sean, I think you are too. Not that long ago, when the government was shut down, Joy and I were going to be meeting in Seattle, and you and I were talking about that this morning. And I was looking at how the heck am I getting there in a way that I'm sure that I'm getting back within a timely manner, because airports were shutting down. And in fact, Seattle's airport was one of them that was limiting their flights at that time. And so I needed to look at how to get there. And coming from, Fargo, what method is available to me? Well, as it turns out, when I went into ChatGPT brought me right to Amtrak. Now, by the time that I found that out and realized that Amtrak had a direct route from Fargo to Seattle, I'm in Amtrak. I booked the ticket, booked the entire thing through Amtrak. And when I came back out, I was still in ChatGPT.
And one thing to add on that is that because last year you were still always like in ChatGPT while you do the booking, right? And then this year, January, Google actually launched that UCP, Universal Ad Campaign. Universal Commerce Protocol, UCP. And then we realized that OpenAI actually launched something called ACP, something very similar. What does it do is that during your Amtrak experiences within ChatGPT, you might never leave ChatGPT, and you might never even get to Amtrak website. All you're seeing is really what Amtrak is feeding towards Google and ChatGPT, so that they're actually the e-commerce platform already. And then you're actually completing all these transactions within ChatGPT. And the payment behind number one, it's a very smooth user journey. Nowadays we call it agentic commerce. Agent is helping with the whole commerce processes. And for users, it's a really good benefit in terms of there's no click anymore. Right? It's kind of like you ask a question, the agent gave you recommendation, and you book everything. In the future, your agent will book it for you. Your AI agent will book it for you. All you need to do is really see, and your agent might even know your preference. Say if you're evening person or morning person, like afternoon person or evening person, it will recommend the best options for you. And all you need to do within these AI systems or platforms, all you need to do is really confirm. So we call it agentic commerce. And and all these processes, you don't need to get out of ChatGPT. You don't need to ever even get to Amtrak website. All these informations from Amtrak has been pushed to OpenAI. So it's kind of like a big e-commerce platform itself already. So I think that's what we're experiencing, and that's really get back to the very big question, the collapse, right? It's kind of like if marketing and sale, because marketing is for the purposes of sales. So if the sales are being completed in one journey, then the way we calculate it might not be collapse, but it's really a combination of marketing and sales. When we do marketing, we lead. Originally, when you do marketing, you do branding, you do marketing, you bring potential traffic. But now, if you do branding marketing, you bring leads all the way down. It's being tracked, or sales, it's being tracked down all the way. Then your marketing expenses can be ROI. You can calculate ROI based on that. And that's really what we're trying to do here as well, is that we believe that marketing has huge power. Also, branding has huge power. Without branding, you're not getting anywhere, because without branding, right? Without branding, like say AI doesn't know who you are, like for the brand, they don't know who you are, so they won't recommend you. So you don't even have the chance to show up on the second page of Google, so that your user might get to the second page and click on you. If you're not in the answer, that's done. So you need to have built your brand enough so that AI knows who you are and trusts you and recommend you. So you are in the answer, and then agent will like you enough, and based on like the user's behavior and the profile, the AI will recommend you. So you will be the final answer, and the conclusion, the sales will be completed per se, so that your marketing expenses all of a sudden can be connected to the sales. And that's what we're building, is that we don't, because we're building a product that's also different from the old time, is that there's like, you need a lot of human beings, like say what Sean just mentioned. You need a lot of study work, interviews to do the branding measurement. But now, if we are building a product to complete the whole branding plus marketing processes and lead traffic all the way directly to the brand, and we don't charge anything upfront. We charge all the way down.
Right. But there is another step in that process, and that's what I want Sean to jump off on here, and that we talk about AI trust signals, right? And the things that AI is looking for to measure authority and trust on any of the brands, because there's a few steps that either get us to that point where we become the answer, and then the mechanisms within that you're describing, Joy, But to get that, we need to create those AI trust signals. And one of the things
Of
that I know,
course.
Sean, you spend a lot of time at, and you're so good at, is visual branding as an AI trust signal. So how does design and storytelling influence that AI discoverability?
Now we're getting into the really squishy stuff, you know, not only not just brand, but the visual parts of brand. Now this has always been super squishy, and like, it's always that do I really want to spend that much money on getting this beautiful video created? What's the ROI of making it beautiful? Right? That's the question I've heard for 20 plus years, right? It's good enough. And I think there's this I think just jumping off on that and, you know, continuing what you were just saying is like there's this collapse of, you know, marketing and sales have always been two sides of the same coin, right? Like they're all trying to drive revenue and they're just at different points in the funnel, right? And now keeping salespeople, no offense, Thomas, but keeping salespeople on script, on brand, that's always been a challenge for us marketers. Now we get to just directly program them to be on script. You know, I always wished I could just program the salespeople's brains, you know, but now we can. Now we can actually do it. And so part of the marketing to sales pipeline has always been, how do you keep the brand story consistent through the entire pipeline? You are creating visuals that are at one high end, you know, at that just getting brand awareness. And then you're arming the salespeople with PowerPoint decks and one sheets and stuff. And you want that all to be telling the same story. You want it to be used in the same way with the same visuals. And now we've actually, we have to actually get good at this. You know, there is like the AI is going to do what you tell it to do. There's nowhere to hide anymore. If something goes wrong, it's your fault. It's your fault because you programmed it wrong. You told it the wrong things to do and how to behave and the wrong story. And so I think it highlights the importance of it, but now how do you do it? Right. And so one example I use in this is, you know, so for one of my companies, Home Stories, we are focused heavily on YouTube, right? So YouTube is one of the top 3 most cited sources for all of the different bots out there, especially Google, because they own it, right? They easily have access to all the transcripts and all the visuals. And it's funny because I think as GEO evolves, it's going to follow the same sort of path that we've seen over and over again. We saw this with social media. We saw this with the internet. We saw this over and over. It's doing the hard things is the thing that is guaranteed to pay off in the long run. There's always little hacks you can do that work for a week or work for a month, but you're constantly on that do the next hack flywheel. But if you do the hard things, which is actually investing in your brand and understanding your ICP and storytelling around that, that will pay. Like if you were doing that right thing in 2000, that right thing would still be working today. It's just a slightly different package for how you're doing it, right? And so if you build a presence on something like YouTube, right, and you're consistently doing these stories and you're storytelling and you're doing it in different, because there's different formats on YouTube. There's this kind of a panel, but then you can do true podcasts. Then you have to do short form, and you do all of that, and you build up actual engagement. Those signals are getting taken into account. You think Google is not bringing over, you know, a lot of the SEO signals into their data for chatbot? That it would be silly to think that they're not. And so if you're investing in that sort of thing, that's going to go a long ways to making your brand actually show up. But I think where it becomes even more important is, what does the next phase look like? So nobody likes just text, right? A bunch of us nerds like me, we love text. We love working in the command line and in the terminal, and like we think text is the purest form of, you know, human communication. But the majority of people are very visual. That's why YouTube is huge, right? YouTube is massive. Like everybody is on YouTube because they love the visuals. So you think ChatGPT is going to be text focused for forever? It's not. Like voice is already coming into it. They're already starting to pull imagery into the results. You're starting to see more and more images come in as the app SDK, part of ChatGPT and Claude and all of them become more and more prevalent. It's going to be pulling in video. It's going to be pulling in images. And guess what? Even if there isn't a click out, they're going to see your image appearing in there. They're going to see your brand. And if they don't instantly recognize that, you're missing out on that massive opportunity. And I think that the next phase, as these tools mature, is going to be visuals all day long. I think that's going to be one of the most important aspects in terms of getting value out of generative optimization, because you won't have the click, but you will have the brand impression. This is the organic versus paid debate all over again. It's like, are you getting your brand actually in front of people? And that's going to require that you have good visual content to do that, because if your content sucks, it's not going to get served. Nobody wants it.
Right.
It's
So the only,
a very
go
good
ahead.
point.
Yeah.
Oh,
The only
yeah,
thing I
very
would-
good point.
The only thing I would
First,
add,
Thomas.
the only thing I would add to that would be that the structure and the setup by way of how that content is now set up vis-a-vis your website and vis-a-vis getting back to AI search is now critical. So if you haven't structured that and linked it back and created those points by which AI can quickly find you, then your competitor, who may have crappy videos but has done a better job of setting up that structure, may be found before you. So it's not one or the other, it's both.
Yes.
And that's where the magic happens. And that's how we need to make this really come to be. And at the end of the day, that's what gets us found. That's what allows AI to bring us up. And when we've done the job that you've done and created that organic audience, and then combine that with the structure that AEO is looking for in order to serve us up in that query or series of queries that our customers there are putting forward, now we're in a position to do what? Well, now we're in a position to answer those questions. And that's where this, branding becomes sales point becomes so clear, because now we're being directly served up. If, as the brand, we've continued with that structure and added the ability to create an AI sales pipeline, or that functionality as Joy was discussing with the commerce engine, right? Agentic commerce. Now you're in business. Now you've completed that cycle, and now you're processing that entire transaction, and you're completing the customer journey, but in such a smooth way. So I guess what I would ask right now, on the basis of our discussion, is it fair to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that branding is more important than ever?
I think it's always been this important, but
Okay.
people are starting to realize how important it is. And I think with AEO, the branding becomes more measurable for more people, and it becomes more, I guess in one sense, it will be harder to ignore it because you simply will not exist. You can't optimize for a single keyword anymore. Like Joy was saying, it's so much richer, and that it requires branding in order to get to that level. I think that the people that invested in brand have always been the one that have succeeded the most, because it is this whole second funnel that's hard to measure, but is much more powerful. And now the funnel is probably even bigger with ChatGPT and Google.
Yeah,
Well, Joy,
I cannot agree more.
Joy, what do you think is the biggest mistake companies are currently making when they're approaching their marketing vis-a-vis AI?
By not making any changes, right? Like, I think because everything is so new, marketers are hesitating to make changes because they're so afraid to make mistakes, And then what I'm telling my clients is that, say, if you're getting, say, currently they always compare every channel against each other, meaning that ChatGPT comes up, right? So when they investing in it, they try to measure, say, how much traffic you're bringing to us, and then what's the CPC, CPV on top of it. But I'm literally this week, because one of the clients is saying that AI hardware company, and that I won't name who, but then they're saying their CPC is $3 from Google. And then they're like, say, oh, so how much traffic you are going to bring us? And then what's the budget? They're comparing against the new channels. But then what I'm jumping in to tell them is that, number one is that you have to build your branding. Branding is ever more importantly, because remember, like original, it's your users need to understand your branding. Now there's a new audience called agent. They need to understand who you are. So
Right.
that requires branding. And then, but also parallelly, say for that you need to get your website stronger, like post videos, post text, and etc. And then having AI to translate it for you as well in the structured format Thomas mentioned, so that agent understand you quicker and better as well. That's important. And then also second thing is really, if you're not building up all these brandings, agent will not know who you are. So you're missing out. But then a lot of marketers are saying that, oh, I can still have $3 CPC. I was like, good luck with that. Because if you're getting $3 CPC 2025, like, do you honestly think you're getting $3 CPC this year? No, because traffic is shifting. Traffic is shifting from Google to AI. So the pool in Google is smaller. So the price will go up until it's so expensive that you cannot afford it. Only the very, very top player can afford it. But the key players or key users are shifting to AI anyway. Why are you paying overprice? Why are you paying more CPC dollars to compete to get all these users are less, like versus 2025? They are not your best top of users. It's not a good idea anyway in the first place, and you need to pay more. Because, and as another fundamental changes is really your traffic is changing to AI, but where to buy these traffic? In 2026, the problem is not where can I get the $3 CPC. It's more about where can I get the traffic, period. You're not just paying more for your CPC. It's even if you pay more, you cannot get your traffic in ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT is not charging CPC. It's not giving any leadways for CPC. So it's like a problem will be, I have all this budget, I cannot spend it. I cannot get growth, not even growth, even maintain my traffic in 2020 than I have in 2025 will be a challenge for marketers. So that's, I think it's going to be the biggest mistake, I would say. If you think you need to wait and see, you're missing out. But then in order to move and get ready for AI, you really need to build your branding, meaning your websites, as a first step to be ready so AI will understand you. And also another point, back to Sean's the visual branding, I think it's also very important. Not that right away visual video will be understood by AI right away yet, but sooner or later it will, because multi-model will understand your videos, will understand your images sooner than later at a very affordable cost from large language model perspective. So keep doing that. It's important from a brand perspective. And secondly is that from the user perspective, remember, it's like, even though we're saying marketing to AI is going to make part of the decision, but human being will never be disappear in this image. So you still need to attract your audience, but then it will be harder, because in the old times, without people seeing any videos or images, a nice article will do your job. Coca-Cola, like 25, 30 years ago, writing a nice newspaper article will help them to build their branding. But then later on, you need to have very amazing visuals, attract them, images. And later on, we all realize, videos are important. I don't think there's any other interactive. I don't think it's ready yet. Interactive like experiences, and it's way overpriced. So I think a video is kind of like the most expensive but most advanced format to attract human being. But then it's like the highest level. You still need to do it as extreme, because people won't be attracted by articles anymore, because AI will understand the article and summarize it for you. So people actually getting answers from all these text format, but people need to still see visuals. So text format is not attracting them, but videos still will, because it's a different experiences. So for brands, I think it's actually going to be bipolar, meaning that your budget might to be bipolar, meaning that you need to invest in amazing visual like videos to attract and build your branding to your users so that they really remember your brand clearly and be attracted to you. And parallelly, you need to do a lot of AEO, agentic, to translate your data so that agent will understand you. So it's like two audience, but different methods to attract them. Sorry, I think my signal is cutting off. So yeah, apologize for that.
No, your video froze a little bit, but your audio never stuttered. And that's what matters, right? But I think one parallel that I like to think about and draw for people, which a lot of brand people will know about, and that's dark social, right? So dark social, for those that don't know, it's the when people are talking about you via text message or via direct messages, they're talking about you, but you can't see it. You can't measure it, right? Or it's even talking to each other in the hallways, in the real meat space, as they call it now. There's this whole channel that all gets lumped into, direct traffic, or it's not traffic at all. They're talking about who you are to each other without ever even going to your website. And that whole conversation is driven by brand, right? It's driven by the stories that you told that stuck in someone's mind that they felt was worth sharing, right? And so a core part of brand is understanding the motivations of your ICP, your ideal customer. And why do they share that? And a lot of it boils down to, they want to look smart, or they want to look funny, or they want a promotion, or, it's like there's a handful of buckets of like, why are they talking about your brand? What was it that stuck that they wanted to share with a coworker? So this gets a little heady, but like thinking about what are the motivations for the chatbots? Like what are they actually trying to do? Like, why would they share your brand with that user? And I think, as weird as that is, because chatbots are not human, they're not sentient yet. But thinking about
maybe,
we don't have the proof yet. Skynet's getting ready to take off. But thinking about it in those terms, like traditional brand terms of like, what's the motivation, what's the sentiment, like it really does apply here. And you have to think about it in terms of individual ICPs, right? So if you're a B2B brand, and you have to have your champion in your target company, and like, what is it? Why is this agent going to be our champion in that company? And it's because it understands that in one part of the business, this is their problem and this is their context and this is, the ideal solution. You need to be providing the materials, the story in a way, to your point, Thomas, that is structured in the way that an agent can understand all those little details of like, oh, it's, RAG, it's looking at like 600 token context windows and, things like that. But you have to have all those points for it to match up, because we're not in that simple query system anymore. We're in this, does your brand story actually match up with the story of the problem that your ICP is trying to solve? Like that's really how I think about it. And how many different ways can you present that story to ensure that you are going to be the thing that pops up when they're talking about that?
So you're broadening the question to the story.
I think the story is everything. I mean, we're humans. Storytelling is like how we started out as humanity. Like, and voice is actually how we started out. It's, cave people sitting around a fire having a shared oral history. Like, our brains actually are wired differently for voice. Like different things happen in our brain. It's more memorable. And when you marry voice and visuals, that is what becomes a memorable brand. And so the AI, in a lot of ways, is enabling a more human experience online, because we can just talk to our tools now, We can just talk to it, and it can
Right.
give us the thing that we actually need that actually matches with what we're talking about better.
That is such a huge point. That is such a powerful point. And you know what I tell many clients, because they often wonder, well, are you suggesting that all the work that we've done over the years with branding, for those that have, and many have, right, is that all now out? And of course it isn't. That great work you've done is the foundation and the bridge to to this next step. You can't have one without the other. And if you haven't built that, guess what? You still have to.
Yep.
That
Yep.
that doesn't change. What
Mhm.
AI does, and AEO and GEO and all these other elements, is allow that to now progress to this new channel to really become part of the new customer journey. But you need to recognize that that customer journey has radically changed. And if you're going to be part of it, you better understand what, I always tell people, how did you buy or find that last pair of shoes that you looked for? Or that new business solution that you're looking for your company, or whatever it might be. What did you do? Walk me through the steps. And invariably, they come back to me. Well, we went to ChatGPT and we checked it on Gemini. And so why is what you're doing any different, do you think, than what your customers are doing? And then what connected those dots that got you there? And invariably, what's connecting those same dots that's bringing your customers to you? That's what you need to think about. And all the great points that you're making, Sean, by way of personalizing it and by way of answering those questions in the nuances and in the way that people actually ask them, that's going to become more and more important, because now is a conversation. It's an experience, as opposed to looking for that keyword, whatever it was, right? That
Yeah.
brought you up 27 pages of blue links. Those days are hopefully over. I would ask Joy, just to sort of bring this all home, what would you say is now the most important thing that brands should focus on by way of turning it into sales using M2 AI as an example, as well as combining all of these great ideas we've been talking about to maximize that impact today and going forward?
Great question. And also, I think the keyword is really your website, right? That's where your branding is important, your stories is important, your Q&A is important, your product structure specs are important, but you need to have a central place to hold it, and that's your website. And that's where I think you still need to do your branding. You still need to do your brand stories. And because now think about it, originally it's really just the audience will be attracted to your brand stories. Now it's really AI can understand your brand stories if you actually structure in such a way where they can understand. And one place is really just, I think they were saying like the website is back. I think I truly believe that's where, because
I love
there's a
that.
famous kind of like, there's a famous almost like a standard saying that if you want to show up in Google or search, the fundamental rule is really following the EEAT, meaning that you really need to have enough evidence. And that's exactly, just think about AI searches are smarter searches, the LLM searches, or it's almost like the best college interns, almost like the ones work on Wall Street. And then now they're like AIs, and the AIs are mimicking that capability and can read everything for you. So if you want to follow EEAT, you always need to start from your website where you get all your key informations, the data, the brandings, like the products, everything structured in your website. And then also still publish enough data on like the third parties so that it's almost a third party validation to prove whatever you propose about yourself is correct. And maybe a little bit Reddit and UGC. But overall, I think it's very important to really think about how to build your branding and your like visibility almost assets or digital assets right from your website again. So I think that, and also that's where Diploma is providing. We're launching our product called Agentic Page. Currently, it's a beta testing. We're testing over 10 clients saying like, we give us the rights, the limited admin rights of your website to us. We have engines to translate those pages or these websites of yours to machine readable format so that more AI bots will come to you and then understand and recommend you. And that's what we do. And we only charge per sales leads or per like sales conversions. And that's hopefully, let's see it growing, because the AI traffic is growing. And then the user behavior of completing transactions within the websites are growing too with agentic commerce. So we're foreseeing let's see how the business model we're building and betting against on, how does it perform this year.
Wow. I would have loved to repeat this conversation just a month from now, because all the elements that we're talking about are going to be coming into fruition, and we're going to be seeing all these other elements. What an amazing conversation. Well, guys, I want to thank everybody for their time. What an amazing conversation. This is going to continue to evolve. But I think what I want to leave everybody with is that branding now drives your revenue like it never did before. Only today it's direct. And that's what you really need to understand, and what we're here to help you with. Sean, thank you so much for your time today. Such
My
a great
pleasure.
yeah, we're going to have you.
It was great. It was great to participate here and, be with like-minded people. We're all trying to discover this all at the same time, right? And so we all got to put our best minds towards this and figure it out together. So thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Joy. Wonderful to have you as well, of course, and with your depth of knowledge and understanding everything that Deep Lumen brings. Thank you to the audience and everybody who's joined us. Until next time, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Great conversation. And thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Joy. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.